Asian Star Radio 9:05 Tuesday morning, Tuesday the 26th of March 2024, and we are live from Slough. We're loud across London, Manchester, Birmingham, Slough, Windsor, Maidenhead and around the world. Joining me this morning is Sue. Good morning to you, Sue. How are you?
Good morning, Mark. The sunshine has made me feel a bit better today, thank you.
Do you know what? Sue's come in here and then she said to me, I'm retired. I can't believe you're even old enough to be retired.
Oh, but, bless your heart.
I can't believe that. And then she's come and she said, spring has sprung. Now, I came in at 6:30 and it was blue, really, at 6:30. It was bright, but it wasn't hot or anything. Sue says it's lovely out there today.
It's beautiful, yeah. Warm enough to go out without a coat.
Yeah. Is it really?
Yes.
I've got my coat with me and everything. I'm ready for a cold day, but no. We're going to talk, though, slightly more serious than the weather around Slough, because at the moment, Sue and I were just talking a moment ago before we turned the microphones on, the world is a very unhappy place at the moment. You've got, obviously, conflict in Ukraine, you've got the Houthi rebels, and you've also got the horrendous situation going on in the Israel and Hamas conflict as well. There's a lot of unhappiness around the world at the moment, isn't there?
There is an awful lot of unhappiness, and nothing happens in a vacuum. I think for many years this is going to affect many people, which is why I really wanted to come on today to talk about the collective grief that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So many people are contacting us and saying that they are feeling sadness, they're not sleeping, they're angry, they're seeing images, they fear, depression. All of these things are the points of grief. It's exactly how you feel when you're grieving for a lost person. So this is much bigger. It's grieving for the loss of thousands of people, and it's also grieving for the loss of the world as we knew it, where we thought that law, international law and justice ruled, and we're finding that it doesn't if you're not on the right side of whose ally is whose.
Now, I mean, if you think back, obviously there was the 9/11 where thousands of people went in one go and people collectively grieved for that. Obviously, we've seen horrendous scenes coming out from Ukraine. We've seen horrendous scenes coming out from the Israel and Hamas conflict. And I spoke to a friend last night and I said to him what we were doing this morning on this show. And he said to me, do you know what? We don't even watch the news in this house in order to protect our mental health because of just the fact that the news at the moment in particular, with two wars going on, two major wars, the news is not pleasant, is it? And it does then have a knock-on effect because you remember and you carry things with you.
Absolutely that. And I'm hearing lots of people that aren't watching the news. I myself have not been well because of all of this, a condition caused by the stress and the anxiety. And I've had to step back, and then you get a different kind of grief and a different kind of anxiety because you don't know what's going on. So you have to get back into it to see exactly what's going on, and then you have to take a break again. And this is the advice I'm giving people: step back every now and again, look after yourself, because it doesn't seem like it's going to end soon.
No, it doesn't. Although obviously the UN last night called for an immediate ceasefire as well. We don't know how well that has been received as yet, but it is now said that Israel have been isolated now with this call for an immediate ceasefire. But at the moment, the conflict still goes on. And talk to us a little bit, if you would, Sue, about what's collective grief. What are the symptoms in case, because a lot of people will be glued to the news and they'll be taking all this in. What is collective grief, and how can people recognize the impact that this is having on their mental health?
Well, I'm having lots of people contacting me and saying that they have a day where they just can't stop crying. So that's obviously grief. That is quite an open symptom of grief. But there's also the just deep sadness, having intrusive images waking you up at night, losing relationships because your friends and family don't agree with where you are and how you feel about things, and so you don't feel that you can be among those people anymore. There's also this feeling of loneliness that comes through that. and this deep anxiety because you just don't know what's going to happen, and you can no longer bear to see these awful graphic images that we're watching with the genocide unfolding on our screens before our very eyes in real time and being sent to us on social media by the people that are suffering the genocide.
I mean, that I guess is the striking bit, isn't it? Obviously, in terms of media coverage, you can frame anything any way and get anything to sound or look how you want. But it's the actual people, I suppose, that are still fortunate enough to be able to access social media that are sharing their stories. Those are the real heartfelt ones, aren't they? Because that is actually the story from the view of the person living the story actually unfolding.
That's right. And that is the hardest part because it's hard enough to see things on the news, although we don't see very much on Western media,
Hmm.
but there are other outlets. But when you're seeing the things that I've seen, images that I wished I'd never seen, and
Yeah.
sometimes I try to avoid seeing, but you kind of have to. You just need to know what's going on because
There
if
is
you
an
don't know, it's
expression.
worse.
There is an expression, is there? You can't unsee something. And that's
Precisely.
very true. Once you've seen anything, and it doesn't matter how trivial it is, once you've seen it, you can't forget it. But it's often the harsh things that will always stick in your mind. Other things you might think, oh, yeah, I remember that. But then there are other things you think, I wish I'd never seen that.
That's right, because they just keep coming back to haunt you, and you have no warning when it's going to happen. You just suddenly are attacked by this memory and this image. And I think lots of people, certainly lots of our members, are feeling that and are saying that to us.
Hmm. Now, I mean, in terms of the news, what would you recommend? Watch it and keep up to date, or don't watch it, or is it a personal choice?
Very much a personal choice, but I would say that if you don't watch it at all, you have the anxiety of not knowing what's going on. So dip in and out
Yeah.
according to what you can stand yourself.
Although in this day and age, I guess you've got BBC News, you've got ITV News, you've got Sky News, the main platforms in this country, and you could choose to avoid all of those, but then you're still going to see it on social media anyway, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I choose to avoid BBC because that doesn't seem to give us a very true picture anyway. ITV is getting a lot better these days. Al Jazeera is quite a good one. They show a very balanced view of lots of things that are going on. And I think it has also really affected us the fact that our government is making decisions for us which we don't necessarily agree with, and they're not sticking to international law on a just basis. It's very much double standards. And so that affects people because they feel that there is no justice and there is no belief anymore in all of those institutions to which we put our faith into that would
Hmm.
keep the world safe. And so that is an effect on top of all the grief of the loss that we're seeing.
Sue, what can the world do though? Because obviously the United Nations yesterday has called for this ceasefire, which Israel could choose to abide by or could choose to ignore. What can the world actually do though without starting a major world conflict? Because it's the same, isn't it, in the Russia-Ukraine situation? The world has said, no, we don't like what you're doing, but nobody's actually stepped up and said, if you don't stop it, there will be consequences. What can the world do in order to stop what's going on in the Israel-Hamas conflict without sparking a mass war?
Yeah, good point. And I wish I knew because I would be the the best person in the world to be able
President of the
to
world.
exactly to be able to run the whole world. But my personal view is that we thought the United Nations was there to police the world, but it seems that it's the United States that chooses to police the world and affect the decisions of the United Nations and other international groups. However, as you mentioned yesterday, they did actually only abstain and not veto, which makes a change. So I think what the world can do, judging on what's happened in the past, looking at South Africa, for example, sanctions.
Mm.
Sanctions is a good one because no country can operate if they are isolated completely.
Russia still is, though, aren't they?
Are they isolated completely? I'm
Well, they're not
seeing
isolated
things.
completely, but then the whole world is. it's going to come down to, isn't it, what side are you on? Are you on the
Yeah.
Israel side? Are you on the Hamas side? Which side are you on whether you would sanction or not? And that's the problem, isn't it, that we're seeing with Russia, is that certainly a lot of countries have sanctioned Russia, but they still have enough trading agreements with enough countries that they can still keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really comment too
It
much on
is
that
difficult,
because,
isn't it?
yeah, I'm not an expert on that situation. I've devoted my life to the Palestinian cause, having lived in Palestine many
Hmm.
years ago, so that is what's really precious to me.
Yeah.
The other thing, of course, is the arms trade. While people are still arming Israel, they're not
Hmm.
going to stop.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu has said that he's not going to stop. So I really doubt that we're going to see a ceasefire based on what happened yesterday, because he wants to continue until he has finished to achieve his goals, whatever they may be. And
Hmm.
we dread to think what they may be.
And of course, the other thing is as well that this has brought about an increased state of Islamophobia and also an increased state of anti-Semitism. Again, just depending on which side of the line you fall on, people are suffering with their mental health just because they are Muslim or just because they are Jew. People are suffering, aren't they? When in fact, it's nothing to do with them at all.
Indeed, it's not even to do with religion, is it? It's about
Mm,
land. It's
yeah.
about taking a country rather than anything to do with the people whose country it is.
Yeah.
And
It's
yes,
just
it's
unfortunate for those people, isn't it, that because you have brown skin, you are therefore targeted by Islamophobia. Because you wear
yes,
the kippah, you are therefore targeted, and that's just unfortunate for those people who really just want to live a life. And at the end of the day, I'm a simple man. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are. If you're a nice person, you're a nice person, and I don't care. But it's unfortunate, isn't it, for those that have been trapped in this and that are now seeing the heightened state of Islamophobia and of his anti-Semitism as well.
indeed it is. And on that, I would like to just say that I wanted to bring somebody with me today, but I couldn't find anybody that felt they were able to stand up and be counted because they fear Islamophobic reproach afterwards. There are many people, even children, obviously, who are fearing prevent measures. There are children who have been excluded from school for wearing Palestinian colours. So there is a lot of fear being put out there, and especially by the government trying to silence us all and trying to make measures and change laws in order to prevent protest, peaceful protest, which is our right under a democratic rule that we've always held dear. We
Mm.
should be allowed to protest. That's how we've made changes. That's how women got the vote. That's how
Yeah,
we got away with slavery.
yeah.
So we have to be able to protest. And on that, I'd like to mention that these so-called hate marches, I've been on almost all of them when I was well enough. Um, and it's the most peaceful place and the most safe place I feel that I've ever been in such a huge crowd. I
Mm.
can wear my backpack on my back, nobody interferes with it. There are people from babies right through to the elderly, people with dogs of all kinds coming along, and a huge Jewish bloc that joins us. So, this notion that London is a no go place for Jews, that's just Islamophobia living out again. And this doesn't help anybody because if you pick on one side, then you alienate the other side too. We need to just recognize people as people. And if you want to stop a genocide and if you want to promote peace, then you're welcome, whichever side you're from.
The majority of people, be they Christian, Jewish, Muslim, atheist, they just want peace, don't they? The majority of people just want peace around the world.
The majority of people do. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the majority of governments don't because there's a huge amount of money in the arms trade.
Hmm. That is very, very true. Now, obviously, you want to address the issue of the returning the fighters as well, don't you?
Yes, and this bothers me because, as well as our mental health, from what we have seen on screens, these people have been to Israel to actually fight.
Mm.
So, what have they seen? And
Yeah.
then they are coming back here. What effect has that had on their mental state?
Yeah.
That they come back and then just walk among us as if nothing happened? That frightens me.
Mm.
It
Do you know
really
what?
frightens
The
me.
Gulf War changed that a little, though not enough, didn't it? Because before then, as a soldier, as a fighter, you saw many horrible things. You probably had to do many horrible things because it was your job, and then you would just get on with it. Get a
Yeah,
job, get on with it once
yeah.
you're out the army. Whereas I think slightly the Gulf War and the onset of the recognition of PTSD, that changed things a little, but not enough though, because if you are brave enough to be fighting, you are going to see, through no choice of your own, you are going to see some horrible things, aren't you?
Indeed, you're going to see them, and as you mentioned, you're going to do them as
Yeah.
well. So whether
It's
you've,
your job, isn't it? If
yeah,
you are there as a soldier or if you're fighting, it is your job, unfortunately. It's not the nicest of jobs to have to do, but it is your job and you can't not do your job.
no, but you can choose if you want to do that job.
Yeah. Yes, yes, you can. Yeah, and that's very true. But then, if that is the job that you have and that's what you're doing, how do you ever clear your mind of the thoughts of what you've seen or what you've done? That's the
Exactly.
problem, isn't it?
That
Is
is
that
exactly the problem
you're
that
going
they,
to carry those
yeah.
flashbacks with you for life and maybe even the guilt of what you've done for life. And it's very, very difficult. And I'm not clever enough to know how you would ever attempt to solve that.
No, and this is what worries me, that people are coming back from fighting in Israel to just then go on. One of them was a chaplain at Leeds University. There's been people coming back addressing groups, speaking about what they've been doing over there. But what has happened? Has Israel done anything to address any PTSD that they may be suffering before they returned them? Are we doing anything here? I very much doubt it, because they've just walked straight back in. So it worries me, the effect on them and what they may then deem fit to be doing here when they see anything they don't like.
Mm.
If
It,
I'm carrying a Palestinian flag or got one in my window, is somebody going to attack me?
mm. It is a worrying thought, isn't it?
It
The
is.
world teeters at the moment, I think, with what's going on, certainly in Russia and Ukraine and the Israel and Hamas conflict. The world teeters at the moment. And I guess the message to take away from today is that while you may obviously have a concern for what is going on, look after yourself as well. Look after your own mental health. And as you say, dip in and out as you feel that you can and try to protect your own mental health.
Exactly. And on that, I'd like to offer a suggestion. Um, I think it really helps when you mix with like-minded people, people that are feeling the way you feel. And so I would suggest that you contact us. eastberkshirepsc.com is our website. Come along, join our demonstrations, our protests, our meetings, be among like-minded people, because so many that have come along have said how good they feel to know that there are others feeling the same as they do. And can I just go ahead and promote a couple of events that we've got coming up?
Carry on, Sue.
Thank you
Carry
very
on.
much. Tomorrow morning, I did mention the arms trade earlier. Tomorrow morning, there are a group of us, along with West Surrey Palestine Solidarity Campaign branch as well, that will be demonstrating outside the Farnborough Exhibition Centre, where there is an arms fair.
Mm-hmm.
On Thursday, we have our usual weekly demonstration at Salt Hill Park, 5:30 to 7. Very
Mm-hmm.
welcome to come along and join us. And on Saturday, of course, there is another national march with Palestine Solidarity Campaign and their coalition of partners. That begins at Russell Square at 12 noon. And one last one is on Sunday at Jamia Masjid Islamic Centre on Stoke Road. There is a fundraising day, and we will have a stall there. Come along and see us, because by chatting to us, it just might help you. And by joining us, it just might be the thing that you need to help you cope with what's going on.
Sue, thank you very much indeed for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you in here. And the one thing I'll say to you is you look after yourself.
I am trying. Thank you very much, Mark, and thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you very much.
Asian Star Radio. Day and night, playing the best in Asian beats from Bollywood to Bhangra.